has to be, what its past history is, all those sort of things. The field standards, seed standards. So, land requirements. Certified seed crops can't be planted where volunteer growth from a previous crop may cause contamination. So you're not going to be able to grow seed stock, not going to be able to grow certified seed where even that same variety but other varieties were grown before. You're going to have to find new land. Fields for foundation and registered classes of seed. Those are early on in the production process. It goes from breeder stock seed to foundation seed to registered seed to certified seed. Okay, those fields have to be 5 years free of industrial hemp. Certified fields must be grown in land that preceding 3 years haven't produced a crop of industrial hemp. And the fields must be reasonably free of diseases and weeds for consideration. Presence of any listed noxious weeds will just cause for declining certification on those fields. Again, I'm going to say it over and over. You're going to hear it until you're just tired of hearing it. This is no different than any other crop. Production, the field standards will include, they'll have to do inspections of those fields, multiple inspections. There will be isolation requirements, impurity standards that are set so that when they walk the field, they'll look to make sure it is, if it's supposed to be 3 foot tall, it isn't half 3 foot tall and half 8 foot tall. So, the inspection process. The growers are going to be responsible to ensure that the fields are inspected by the state's authorized inspection agency, which is, like I said, at this time is CSU, at least twice prior to harvesting. And I say at least twice. That depends on the type of crop it is. Some crops will require 3 inspections. So monoecious, dioecious, at all. There's some variation on what you have to fulfill for this. So let's see, and that's got to be done at the appropriate times. It isn't just, boy, I planted it out, now it's 6 inches tall. So you really, if you're getting into the certified seed production side, you must be working closely with the agent that's going to look at it. And it must be inspected at the growth stage when varietal purity is best determined. Back again, it can't be at that 6 inch stage because that doesn't really tell you anything. If it's not what it says it is, it just can't be certified seed. Even if you've gone through the whole process, you think it's where it is. If it is not what you're telling us it is, or CSU, it won't be certified. First inspection must be made before female flowers of the crop are receptive and after formation of male flowers. Now, that's probably going to be difficult because I think the male flowers actually come on first. But the second inspection must be made when the female flowers are receptive and normally within 3 weeks of the first inspection. And then again, it depends on the type of plant it is and the crop itself. The third inspection may be necessary. I mentioned isolation areas. They're going to be looking at the crop, but they're also going to look at the area around the crop, the area that's has to help maintain the purity of the crop so that there can't be a stand quarter mile away that's cross-pollinating an impurity. So they'll be looking at isolation areas and the distances to make sure there's no volunteer hemp plants or harmful contaminants in that process. As I mentioned, isolation is really a key for the purity. Isolation areas must be free of other cannabis plants. Male plants have to be removed from the field and all plants around them if they're an off-type. So if you've got one off-type, it's going to mean you've got a hole there. Setback distances are based on foundation registered or certified seed as determined by ASCA, and they'll be used to ensure the purity. So it depends on the stage of, again, growth that is, that setback is a little different. Distance of the type of plant will also affect how far those setbacks are. long, big chart to tell you where you're at. And you know, we're happy as we get ready to start planting foundation, starting to look at that more registered seed or certified seed to be able to share all that. I just didn't want to go into all that detail right here for everybody that may not be interested. So, as I mentioned, registered, certified, all those things add. The furthest distance, 1,650 feet is the furthest distance any of that has to be apart. That would be for foundation seed. Shortest distance is 646 feet. So it's not, you know, this huge setback distance that everybody is thinking about at this point. Like all crops, again, it has to be free of diseases, insects, all those impurities have to be removed before the crop is inspected. Combination of impurities, so you might have a little of this and a little of this and a little of this. All those things kind of add up to say whether it's pure enough to be, it's not just one contaminant. And things that are really can cause cross-pollination. A weed seed that looks like hemp seed may be reason to disallow it from certification process. So you have to be able to clean it, you have to be able to identify what's in it. Again, each class of seed will have different standards. Minimum for all classes is 98%, inert matter is 2%, weed is 0.1% in all classes, and germination got to be over 80%. So again, this is a move from just, this is some seed and I hope it grows. Kind of that first year, some of you may have experienced people selling seed that could also have been considered grain at Whole Foods. So you bought seed and it didn't germinate, it probably wasn't seed, it was grain. So certified seed has a standard of 80%. So total other crops you can see, extremely pure at foundation level, registered has a little more variation, certified a little more tolerance. Same thing with other varieties and other kinds. So, funding. Long-term funding for the seed program really has to be addressed. We should all be thanking our legislature right now. The reason this is getting off the ground is Senate Bill 196 afforded us some funds, I'll call it seed money for the certified seed program to get us started. That is not long-term funding, that is short-term funding to get us off the ground. So we have to figure out how we're going to pay for this to make sure that the program is self-sufficient as required under the rules. So balancing a portion of that to make sure that it's not all on the farmers, to make sure you get varieties, it's not on the breeders, is going to be the challenge we have to face. No fees at this time have been set. The reason I say that is, at this point in time, we've got that seed money. We want to use that to make sure we get this program up and running, and then we can take a look at what is it costing us, and then apply the appropriate
You can find SB 196 on GrowAmp, Colorado.
So, rule point 7.2, in addition to the registration fees required by 2.8 and 2.9, all registrants shall pay to the department an additional fee established by the committee for the purpose of funding the cost of administering the CDA-approved seed certification program. This is really the part we think that it's kind of a balance. If you are right now out there and you were selected for testing, the average testing cost last year was somewhere between $500 and $600. Now, you didn't get it every year, might get it every 2 years, might get it every 3 years, might get it 2 out of 3, might get it 3 out of 3. It's all, again, back to that risk and random. Well, we think if you're planting certified seed, knowing what your costs are would be of value to you. If you aren't going to have a $500 fee because you're planting certified seed, it's maybe worth $100 or $200 to help put into the pot so that if you're growing it, you don't have an unexpected cost. If everybody does that, we help pay for the administration of those trials in those fields. Now, this isn't, I'd like to take credit for being this smart, but this is really our registrants. The registrants for the last 2 years have been, why can't we just pay for this? Everybody pay a little more. Now, this is at the same time, many of them are saying we're paying too much, but why can't we just average this? So this is our way to say, here's maybe a way we can start to average. You're receiving a benefit. That benefit may really reduce your overall sampling costs, and it moves us toward an agronomically normal program. Rule 7.3, an applicant that submits a variety for approval under the CDA approved certified seed program shall pay for the testing cost incurred by the department. This is the applicant's part. They're going to have a benefit as well. Their benefit is that they probably have greater access to the market. That farmer had lowered his risk and lowered his cost of production, but the applicant is also participating. One of the advantages of certified seed is, there's confidence in the marketplace in your variety. So you tend to move to the top of the pile of what they're buying. So this is the applicant's share of paying for the system. And with that, I'm going to close. And then we'll take questions. Go ahead. I'll try to repeat them.
For the processing and manufacturing, is there any regulations in those?
So the question is processes and manufacturing. Are there any rules for those? So the legislature granted the CDA jurisdiction over cultivation only. And I would say they were pretty wise. And I use the same analogy over and over again. The CDA also monitors corn, but I don't monitor an ethanol plant, nor would you want to be standing next to me when I told you the boiler was safe. It's not what we do. We're plants people. That's where we focus. And so cultivation is the limit of our jurisdiction. We tell registrants that if you are doing a process, the first place to start is to take and forget that what you're doing is industrial hemp. Think of it as wheat or potatoes or corn. Who would regulate this if you were doing this process with another product? And that's where you ought to start to look for regulation. Yes?
I have two questions and one from a live stream viewer. My first question is regarding the test stuff that's becoming available with RFID tags. How does a state laboratory sign up with the CDA, or are they just automatically, we can go to them after the first and we get the RFID tag? How does the state lab that wants to participate get?
So the question is how do these state labs, and I'm assuming you mean the certified private labs, the state certified private labs?
Not private labs, the state approved labs that test for MJ right now that we could use the RFID.
Yeah, those are private labs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. So the state certified labs that MED uses. So the hard part about making this all happen was working on a computer system that runs parallel to, but not inside of, metrics, for those that are familiar with the marijuana industry. So we had to develop a system that worked parallel to it so that the labs didn't have to buy a new system, because then it became obviously cost prohibitive. It didn't help us move. So we've worked to develop a system that works parallel to it, not inside of it. They will, once the system is up, which we hope is January 1st, that's still all indications January 1st, the lab would be able to take in samples. I don't know at this point whether they've got to contact Franwell, who is the programmer for it. But registrants will. Registrants will have to go to Franwell, and we don't have a name for our system yet.
So check it back in at the first of the year.
Yeah, I think check
Okay.
back in the first of the year, because then what registrants will be able to do, you'll have to do, is you'll have to sign up with, Franwell, you'll have to take a training video, we think is the way it'll be. MED has once a month, you've gotta go in to make sure you're there. And they've got online, or they've got in-person things. Ours are really gonna be, because it's voluntary, we wanna make this easy, we wanna make sure that you understand what data you've gotta put in. But it'll be a training video to say, this is what I gotta put here and there, maybe some helpful guide that goes with it. And then, yes, that system will access the database here just to confirm that you are a registrant, that somebody else can't just take something in, and that the lab should be good to go.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. And then two other questions. One, I think it's 3.5.3 or either 3.2.3, where it's talking about like if you had a nursery or you sold some plants to someone. Is there a time frame for that harvest and the planting report to be submitted? Is it like 24 hours or 36 hours of the transaction?
So the question is under the rules, as I talked about moving plant material, that was moved from one area or sold to somebody else, planting report and the harvest report. What you want to do is 30 days before harvest, it's exactly the same thing. 30 days before harvest, you turn in a harvest report. Within 10 days of planting, you turn it in. Now, the one thing that we tell everybody that's contacted us and saying, well, I'm taking young plants from this spot, I'm going to either sell them or plant them over here. Boy, when you turn in that harvest report for where you're going to move them to, note on there what you're doing, because that helps track it. It's not required, it just helps us track it. And then I can tell you that if you are telling me that you're taking young plants from this greenhouse and putting them on June 15th into this field, there's really not any reason to come and harvest or come and sample. It saves you and us to make sure that you've just declared all you can. Like I said before, communicate, over-communicate. Put right on there. Then on your planting report in the field, tell me where they came from. Then you've got the bridge. So,
Okay.
so it's really 10 days, within 10 days after planting, make sure it's in. That starts with the initial one, it's the next one, it's the next one, and 30 days before harvest.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question from the live stream viewer, I just want to see if you'll confirm, saying the land which they intend to grow on does it have to be zoned for agricultural or be zoned agricultural to be compliant for the commercial grower's license?
So the answer would be not as far as we're concerned. Our jurisdiction is over the issue of registration. We do tell all our registrants, if you are applying for registration, it's your responsibility to make sure that you are compliant with any other zoning rules, HOA rules, anything else. We can't check every area of the county, every area of the state, every local jurisdiction. So our jurisdiction is statewide. It's a statewide mandate to issue a registration in all counties in every area, but it's the registrant's responsibility to make sure that they have the ability to go there. We had somebody last year that actually planted, thought they had done everything right, and then they had an HOA that came in and said they couldn't grow, and I don't remember what the reason was, but they couldn't grow the material there, so he had to get rid of his crop, not because there was any zoning ordinance from the city or county, but because there were literally HOA regulations. So just make sure that if you're getting a registration, before you submit for registration, that where you're going to submit it is you can plant it there.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yes, Alex?
You mentioned mature plants a couple of times now. Is there any plan to further identify that or define what that means?
I think everybody heard, but the question was there any discussion about defining what a mature plant is? I guess I never thought about it, because the problem up to this point has been everybody thinking harvest only meant mature plant. So this is a kind of a different way now to have to think about it. So when we think about a mature plant, it is when its THC concentration would be the highest. Again, it goes back to that. I don't know that everybody wants to harvest this variety on August 15th, nor do I know that everybody would hire it. So we would take it to its full maturity, the highest THC, and that's what we would consider a mature plant. But we haven't thought about a need to put it in rules, mostly because it's been a problem the other way, where people didn't recognize that mature and harvest didn't have to mean when it was in flower bud at the end of its life cycle.
And to me, it's a big question regarding the seed certification program, because there may be varieties. I think the standard for most cannabis is considered 8 weeks in flowering, and maybe at 8 weeks it's fine. Is the seed certification program going to then test it at 8 weeks, or if it takes it to 10 weeks, that's a different level of maturity, and seed may need to be marked with a maturity date, or we need to define what that standard is through the seed certification program.
Yeah, now, again, it goes back to, we will take it at its full maturity. So if that's 10 weeks, it's 10 weeks. Because again, it goes back to, if you sold it to farmer B and told him it had to be 8 weeks, he's gonna harvest it at 8 weeks. You sold it to farmer C, he may say, I think I can get a little more seed out of it. I want to let it go 10 or 12 weeks, and then it's over. So we will take it at its highest content, its highest potential content. And then that may preclude some varieties from being certified seed. I would tell you the one thing that's a little different from here than most other places, you use Canada, for example, there you've got a certified list.